We're sitting here cruising the high seas, and I've interviewed him in Brooklyn, New York, in Manhattan, in the Catskills. It was nice to see him at Destination 613. Rabbi Yechiel Lechtenstein is a psychotherapist. He's somebody who is also involved in cruising. He works with Destination 613. If you went up to Kutcher's of blessed memory, you saw him there and giving lectures, and his infectious smile permeated not just Kutcher's, but also makes it very, very special being on the high seas together. So good to see you again.
It's great to be with you again, Zev.
So, let me ask you this question. Do people who go in high seas, are they less problematic than when you see in your office in Brooklyn? Or just being on the high seas is therapeutic?
Well, the people that I see in Brooklyn, I get to know a lot better than the ones that I see on the cruise. Although when you do spend that much time together, you definitely make a lot of new friends. So it's definitely a different experience for me being on a cruise than being in the office. But it's also a very nice place to be.
Now, part of, I'm sure what you do is also marital therapy. And lots of times you have friction and they don't have enough time that they spend together and they have all kinds of stress. Do you ever recommend that if they're having some marital problem, they go on a cruise or go on a boat for 7 days or 10 days, that maybe that would calm things down?
So I'm definitely a big believer in spending more time together as a way to develop the relationship. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend jumping in with 11 days if things are a little bit rough, but I would definitely say, take
you think
a couple
it's going
days
overboard?
at a time. Well, overboard is probably not a term I'd use while on a cruise. After 11 days, maybe. But what I would definitely say is that, a couple of days, spending time together, disconnected from the rest of the world, it could have a tremendous impact on people's relationships.
What is, again, you see a lot of different people, different capacities. What is, in your professional opinion, the most problematic situation in the relationships today?
Definitely there are certain expectations that people have, not only of their partners, but even of what they want their lives to look like. And when their life doesn't look the way it does, they're going to try to figure out what's holding them back from doing that, or what's blocking, or what's getting in the way. And very often that'll turn into a relationship friction, when in reality it requires a review of perspective on what they're really looking for in their lives and what they really want and what they're trying to accomplish.
You're saying it's transference, as if they have a problem achieving a certain goal, they blame their spouse or somebody else in the family for their failure?
Often enough that happens, and sometimes it's not that clear. It's just that they're unhappy because they're trying to achieve a certain type of a life or achieve a certain type of experience or feeling even. Sometimes it's just simply happiness, and then they'll just start picking at the things that are not making them as happy as they expect to be, instead of reconsidering that maybe there is a lot of things that do make them happy. And it's not that perfect image that they were looking for, but they can have a perfect image that looks a little differently.
In today's day and age in America, I guess the slogan is the pursuit of happiness. That's what everybody is supposed to be pursuing. But what is being happy?
And I think that's a great point, Zev. The pursuit of happiness ends up being more about the pursuit than about happiness.
Or the happiness of pursuit.
Yeah. So it instead of a means to an end, instead of the pursuit being a means to the ends of happiness, people are getting stuck in the pursuit, not realizing that happiness it's a state of being which comes and goes. And if you experience it by living in the moment, you can have a tremendous amount of happiness. But if you're going to constantly pursue it as an end completely, you probably never get there, because it's transient. It comes and goes.
So what do you suggest to people that are, and again, this goes even beyond marriage, there are all kinds of, listen, with all the communication tools that we have today, people are communicating less. And all the time-saving devices, people are working more. And so it seems like all these modern conveniences, I think Rabbi Soloveitchik speaks about that, with all these modern tools for modern man, it really has regressed them, not progressed them. So what do you recommend to people?
Well, I definitely think it's important to think about that. And the key to everything in life is really awareness. Now, we're not going to change the world, and we're not going to set ourselves back. Technology is here to stay, and it's going to only get more advanced. And it has its benefits. It definitely has its place. But if we're aware of the impact that it has on our communications, meaning that we don't have that real, genuine communication, then we can work on building that in. Instead of removing technology, we can focus on what needs to be added in, and it's that that focus on having those real, genuine, face-to-face verbal relationships.
Well, I guess to a certain degree, maybe the Orthodox community may be lucky at least one day a week. You're not supposed to be on a cell phone, not supposed to be on social media. So I guess you're forced to face conversations unless you fall asleep at the Shabbos table. But it certainly is an issue because people are spending more time with their phone than with people. And, when they see them face to face, they have trouble communicating. It's easier to send a text.
And I think that's also very important to realize that although we do have that one day of Shabbos, which we can spend communicating, sometimes just because of that lack of awareness, we don't realize how little we've communicated over the week. We just end up spending time reading a book or reading a newspaper, reading a magazine, and not taking advantage of that opportunity. So it definitely is something that requires a certain amount of focus and dedication to doing that. But there's tremendous benefit to it.
Rabbi Yechiel Lechtenstein is our guest. We're aboard and we're broadcasting from a cruise. We're actually, let's see, where we're going. We're on our way right now to Aruba.
We are on our way to spend Shabbos in Aruba, and from there we're going to be sailing towards Panama, making a couple stops on the way.
It's great, Destination 613, but not everybody has smooth sailing in their lives, and that's what we're talking about, and we're making reference to that over here. What's your biggest challenge being a psychotherapist? It's a good question, right? I'm asking you a challenging question.
That's a great question. I'm used to people asking me what are the greatest challenges that I see people having as a psychotherapist, but having the tables turned and asking what the greatest challenge is, it is most likely misunderstanding. People being aware to a certain extent about mental health, but not knowing enough about it. And because of that, they'll either consider challenges that can be dealt with as not being worthy of being dealt with, which is totally untrue. Smaller challenges that are dealt with lead to more productive lives. So it doesn't have to be something drastic. If it's impeding upon your life in any which way, you can change that and you can have a better life.
So let me ask you a question. You're Hasidish, and certainly, you speak very articulate. So even though today there's a whole discussion about yeshivas educating, the Hasidic kids with the proper English and skills, you certainly have the skills, so you have a good education. First of all, is your practice more with the Hasidic community? Is it generally here on the boat? You don't have this typical constituent you have back home?
And that's very true, and especially as you mentioned, Kutcher's Olav Shalom was a completely different clientele than what I'm used to back home. In my practice, it's not necessarily strictly Hasidic, although there's a decent percentage, but there's also a significant percentage of modern Orthodox, secular, and a lot of millennials. So there's a lot of hip millennials in the practice.
And they have no problem going to a Hasidic psychotherapist?
Ironically,
I'm happy, but I'm just curious to know.
Ironically, what I find is that in the Jewish community, it seems to be more of a problem than in the non-Jewish community. So in the non-Jewish community, they sort of look at all Jews as being the same. And it's within our own people that we pick up and know the nuanced differences. So we see it as being something different. Because
for a long time in the yeshivish and Hasidic community, they don't like going to psychotherapists. Mental health issues was not really dealt with because they were afraid it would hurt the shidduch if it got out. And I think it's only now in the last number of years that you're seeing more of an awareness, more of a willingness to go to a therapist. And even that, and I would assume you have in your practice, they have different ways of people entering and exiting, so people shouldn't see each other because they don't want to go, you went to a therapist, and they're afraid it would have repercussions. So there are all different kinds of other layers that I'm sure you have to deal with.
Absolutely, and I give a tremendous amount of credit to a wonderful organization, Relief, that has made tremendous strides in the From world. But also there is a new organization that has just formed, which is called Neshama, and they are focusing very much on the Hamish world, on increasing awareness in mental health, support for those who require it, and support for the Hamish professionals. Because, believe it or not, there's quite a few Hamish professionals these days in the mental health world, and they're getting together, and they're going to make a drastic difference in the Hamish world.
Is there an association of Hamish mental health professionals?
So this new
organization,
this new organization, Neshama, which is just started a couple weeks ago by some of my very, very close friends. it's going to make tremendous waves, and they've already made very, very big waves with both with Rabbanim and with lay people and other professionals in the field.
So what are they going to do?
They're going to be an association of Hamisha mental health professionals strictly to support the Hamisha professionals working with the Hamisha clientele, as well as focus on bringing the awareness to the Hamisha world within the cultural context that is appropriate for them.
Rabbi Yechiel Lechtenstein, thank you for joining with us. If people want to contact you, get more information, if they can't find you on the cruise, where can they find you?
So they can definitely call my office, 212-203-4940, 212-203-4940, and someone from my wonderful staff will be more than happy to sensitively take their call, and we'll take it from there.
And of course, privacy assured. That's a very important thing for all therapists, but especially the frum therapists.
Absolutely. So we just renovated our office. On that note, we just moved into a new space and beautiful 1,000 square feet facility. And we've built separate waiting rooms. We have multiple waiting rooms. We have hallways that bypass the waiting rooms and soundproof walls. We've created a very, very strong sense of privacy and confidentiality, but also keeping the place extremely warm and sensitive to our clientele, and we're very proud of our new facility.
I mean, so it's a soundproof. That's the also part of it. I didn't realize. I know they had different entrances, but you're afraid of overhearing, so now you're going the extra mile and soundproofing the rooms.
Absolutely, as well as we've also put in a beautiful music system to increase comfort. We've created
I thought the music
lighting
was to filter out the speakers, so people couldn't hear what's going on.
And that's true, but out of sensitivity, we've created music. If we're going to use the music to balance out voice, we want to have something that's soothing for clientele. We put in mood lighting. We've spent a tremendous focus on making the facility as comfortable as possible so that clients who come can feel not only comfortable and safe, but also respected. And that's our key in our practice, is respect for the client. The client is taking a huge leap in being vulnerable coming to psychotherapy, and they deserve full credit and respect for taking their lives seriously and taking their lives in their own hands, and I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Keep up the wonderful. Good to see you smiling, and whenever it was pictures of now it's the cruises. Good to see you and continuing success.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to spending many, many more cruises and chagim with you, Zev. Always a pleasure.
Likewise.